Jack, we're midway through NBAA 2013, a place where I know you're very comfortable, and even EAA has been very comfortable because EAA has had a presence here for many years.
We have. I mean, EAA is trying to be all about everybody in aviation, and we certainly aren't about business aviation, but we are about pilots and enthusiasts, so this is a good place for us to be.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the news that's being made here. We're seeing a massive amount of interest in retrofit programs because new airframes right now are not exactly cheap and so forth. And I know this is something that is near and dear to your heart right now with projects that you're undertaking. Do you see the retrofit aspect within the business community continuing this revolutionary path, or is it going to level out, or what?
I think depending on market segments that it is going to continue. If you look at flight training example, a $415,000 Cessna Skyhawk is not going to make it as a flight training vehicle for an average FBO and a student pilot that wants to learn to fly for under $10,000. So then it asks you, what are the solutions that are out there? There's the light sport solutions that are still trying to gain traction in the market. Some of them, as we heard this week, are going away or not being supported by the manufacturers.
That's got to hurt, though. I mean, I got to talk about the elephant in the room, but Skycatcher going away, this was your baby. And it was a sweet little airplane. And I know it was not expected at Cessna to be anything that anybody's going to make a tremendous amount of money at. But Cessna was always prescient in that if you started flying them in Cessnas, somewhere down the line, maybe it took 20 or 30 years, but you're handing them the keys to a citation sooner or later.
Exactly. Many a citation owner would be sitting in the citation saying, I've come to you, Cessna, because I respected and grew up in your brand, learning to fly and developing my professional career. But, that aside, the original question is around remanufacturing is, if the manufacturers aren't going to get to a breakthrough point on cost-effective products, it's going to drive the market, which drives what goes on, to taking 172s that are 1976 through 80 models and essentially zero timing them, possibly putting a diesel engine on them like they're doing at Redbird, and fielding a product that can serve the market to be able to provide stable, reliable, bulletproof airframe to go train people at a better price point than what you could do with a new airplane. The whole reason we came out with the Skycatcher when I was at Cessna was our Cessna pilot centers, of which there were 300 of them, could not cash flow a 172 on their flight line, and they were begging for something that would allow people to get into aviation at a lower price point, and that answered the call. We even put the Continental engine in it as a result of feedback from the Cessna Pilot Center. We want an engine that our shops can work on. And I think there's good stories out there that will support that there are very successful FBOs that are flying Skycatchers, under $100 an hour, and they're putting a lot of flight hours on them. The move to change the price point up to something that was going to create a much better margins than the original business plan killed the model. And so if they could ever come to grips with, what's an acceptable margin level, or what's an acceptable brand extension, or what's the bigger strategy, you'd still find that airplane is needed in the marketplace desperately.
With the breadth of experience you've had both in running Cessna and now in running EAA and as an aviator throughout your entire life, you walk the floor at NBAA. What gives you a whiplash? What catches your attention and says, okay, this was cool this year?
It's a lot of different areas. I mean, I think Dassault's new 5X is a really interesting product. The technology they're bringing into the cabins of the airplane, we're going to be such a connected world, and now to finally see it in business aviation is very, very interesting. And then, a lot of good work going into supporting the existing fleets, parts manufacturers, PMA, those things are very, very interesting. It's a bit overwhelming. I mean, this show, when, everything from people are selling pieces of leather to selling a Gulfstream G50 is, the full spectrum. But it all starts, everybody here started in general aviation. I mean, they started as non-professionals, either in recreational flying. So, again, I feel good that EA has to be a part of how do we continue to keep that going.
Aero-TV is brought to you by Since the early days of powered flight, pilots have struggled with landing in crosswinds. In fact, crosswinds and wind gusts cause more landing accidents than fog, thunderstorms, and icing combined. That's where the Redbird X-Wind SE comes in. By placing pilots in gusty crosswind conditions for extended periods of time, the X-Wind SE gives instructors all the time they need to teach the pilot the proper techniques for landing in crosswind conditions. For more information on Redbird X-Wind SE and Redbird's entire line of flight training devices, visit www.redbirdflightsimulations.com.